The shocking truth has been revealed regarding the Toronto Maple Leafs making the trade for Chris Tanev from the Dallas Stars and acquiring his rights just a couple days before free agency. So I'm going to break all that down, as well as because Brad Treliving, he spoke out on the deal and revealed the real reason behind making it. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the large percentage who aren't subscribed, you're going to want to hit that button. Tons of Leafs videos are going to be coming out for you. This is the place to be for the latest Toronto Maple Leafs news. So make sure to hit that button. But Darius, a lot of news is breaking. Obviously, the Chris Tanev trade happened just a little bit ago, and now we have some more details about why and how the trade happened, what the reason is for it, and tons of reporters are speaking out regarding why the Leafs made the deal instead of just waiting until July 1st to when they could have gotten him, in theory, for free. Now, we've had a little bit of time to think about the trade. Chris Tanev is a super exciting player. Everybody, most Leafs fans would agree, it's a great player. Player you get if you want to win Stanley Cup Finals, but the big question mark is going to be how much money he's making. That is yet to be revealed. We probably won't hear that for a couple days. But Darius, again, if you missed the trade, it's Chris Tanev for a 7th, not a 6th. It is a 7th and the expiring contract of Max Ellis. But this is the interesting thing. So Chris Tanev's agent, Wade Arnott, says there's no agreement at the moment with the Leafs. They haven't spoke, but Toronto acquired his rights, so obviously Arnott expects to hear soon from the Toronto Maple Leafs. And this is the scary thing, Darius, that you mentioned in the video earlier. Acquiring Tanev's rights from Dallas gives Toronto the option of going to the max 8-year term. Sounds crazy, but a longer term helps lure players from more tax-friendly markets and lowers the AAV. Tanev is likely to sign in the 5 to 8 year range, which is beyond ridiculous. And there's a lot more to go over, but let's just get your thoughts on the trade and kind of what we've heard about this. We're not going to know what his contract is until he signs, which, by the way, he can do now before July 1st.
Yeah, he can sign now, right? If they come to an agreement before July 1st, they can get that done, which is, I think, why Brad Treliving made the deal. Originally, first seeing it, I thought the reason they made the deal is so they could offer him an 8-year contract because they have his rights. But as Darren Dreger, and we'll get to in a minute, stated just a couple minutes ago, that's not the case. They can't actually offer him 8 years, but they can offer him like 5, 6, 7 years to bring the AAV down. That's the first thing I was thinking of. And that is another reason why I think they made this trade to offer him, max, not max, but like a lot of years on the deal. And it sounds crazy, but stay with me, right? Because it makes sense if you think about, he is 35, but he could, agree to retire at the end of, the first 3 years, 4 years, something like that, right? And that could give the Leafs some relief because it isn't a 35 plus contract yet. He's going to turn 35. So the Leafs are in a pretty decent spot getting this player, at least for the next 2 years. He's certainly going to help the team. This is a really exciting trade if you're the Leafs, right? This instantly makes them better. This is exactly who they wanted last year and at the trade deadline. So it's really exciting. But it's going to be interesting to see what Brad Treliving does and gets creative with this, because originally I thought it was so they could offer him 8 years, but now it's leaning more towards they just wanted more time to sign him and talk to his agent, get something done that's a little more creative. And I think he might end up being signed before July 1st. Maybe he gets signed tomorrow, right? So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, he could get signed tonight, probably not, but it could happen. You never really know. Crazier things have happened, but yeah, I mean, this instantly makes them a better team than they were last year, at least regarding the blue line, depending on what happens with the rest. Like, he's already probably their best defenseman alongside, of course, Morgan Rielly. But the moves they made last year at the deadline, Ilya Lyubushkin, Joel Edmondson, Tanev is better than all of them by a significant margin, especially for this team. So this is super exciting. Now, Treliving spoke out and said that they will get to work trying to get Tanev signed. Now, I was hoping when the trade first dropped, and you could kind of tell if you watched the video from earlier today, that they kind of had an agreement in place, and they technically can't do that. But doesn't seem to be the case right now. It just seems like they wanted to get a head start on signing him. Maybe they sign him, like you mentioned, before July 1st on Monday, and then they get to work signing another player like Nikita Zadorov, and now maybe the Leafs become more intriguing to other free agents because they have a more competitive blue line. Zadorov, Tanev played together before. Makes some sense there. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways here, but Treliving said that they will get to work trying to get Tanev signed.
I think you bringing up Zadorov is very interesting now, because them acquiring Tanev early and being able to sign him before July 1st and maybe offering him a ridiculous amount of years, but of course he may end up retiring, or they can get out from under that right at the end. We deal with that later kind of thing. Lots of those contracts, like Robidas Island, named after him. We'll deal with it when we get there. But you bring up Zadorov, right? And I think it's interesting because if they do offer Tanev a number of years, 7 years, let's say, the AAV comes down. So then you can a lot more money to maybe Zadorov on the blue line, right? Get a guy in there to help shore up your defense again. And you still have to look like what's going to happen with Bertuzzi and Domi. We don't know. We don't have answers on that either, right? Sounds like they're going to test the free agency market on Monday. It's going to be very interesting. So I think if you sign him for a longer term and just deal with it later, you can get a lower AAV and you can use more money to sign another defenseman or more forwards or whatever you want to do with your money. We don't really have an idea of what they're going to do exactly still. It's still kind of up in the air. So exciting, but they're going to have to get creative with the end of that contract. That's for sure. Because it sounds like it's going to be pretty long term and he's already going to be 35 this coming season.
Yeah, it seems like regardless, the reason they made this move in one way or another was that they know more moves are coming. So this allows them to get a bit more creative earlier regarding signing a guy like Nikita Zadorov, which all reports and rumors are stating might be inevitably coming to Toronto. So I don't know. It's very interesting. And you want to mention this, and you obviously did. Darren Dreger said, correction, post-deadline, the player has to be on the team's reserve list. So the Tanev can't get more than 7 years from Toronto. The Leafs made the trade to jumpstart a negotiation to sign Tanev, which could lead into some other things, specifically, again, making subsequent moves. We came into the offseason with Brad Treliving saying he wants to shore up the blue line. New reports came out saying their focus is on the blue line. We said it in a video that the blue line is going to be the thing that they do first come July 1st. Whether they get Jake DeBrusk, whether they re-sign Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi is yet to be seen. But what's going to happen first is the blue line. And guess what? They went out and did exactly that, and they got one of the best defensemen, if not the best defenseman, arguably, depending on what you need. Maybe, make an argument for Montour and a couple of other guys available in free agency. And again, they haven't signed him yet, but I cannot fathom a world where they traded an asset for a guy that doesn't end up staying in Toronto. And this is Brad Treliving. He's an elite defensive player, an absolute warrior. He's a culture carrier for your room. And that's what we said. He's a guy that wins you games, and he wins you Stanley Cups, not obviously on his own, but he helps build a culture. He helped the Dallas Stars immensely. The Stars were, if you saw in our video earlier, I think, or in the past as well, the Stars really wanted to keep, Chris Tanev. They just ultimately weren't able to.
Yeah, they weren't able to, and I guess they kind of threw in the white towel, right, and said, threw up the white flag, and we give up. We'll trade you his rights. So at least they're not betting against each other or bidding against each other at the deadline on July 1st. So this is a good thing, I think, if you're a Leafs fan, right? We're gonna find out the very fine details of what the contract looks like in probably the next day or maybe even day or two, right? But hopefully it gets done, tomorrow. So then they have an idea of what they can do on July 1st, and hopefully they get creative with it too, right? Because you don't want to get too handcuffed. But again, at the end of the day, like you mentioned, this is a guy that not single-handedly will win you a Stanley Cup, but when you look at Stanley Cup winners in the past, you need guys like this on your team, right? So it is exciting for the Leafs. And they wanted him last year. We were all talking about it last year. Oh, this guy could really help the Leafs, right? This is perfect for the Leafs. And here he is, right? And there is no world where he doesn't end up a Leaf now past July 1st, right? Because why would you ever trade for a guy's rights if you aren't completely confident that you're going to sign him? So they're going to figure something out. I just wonder how many years it is and what the term is so they can, I think they're going to get creative. I think that's the reason for this trade.
This allows them to get creative, especially when pursuing other free agents. And maybe it's a world where, like you mentioned here, he retires earlier, goes to Robidas Island, goes in the long-term IR. Super exciting. A very, very exciting day if you're a Leafs fan. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of that. And lots of moves are coming, so make sure to hit the subscribe button. See you soon.